Thank you everyone for coming tonight. Really appreciate taking the time out of your evenings and joining us here with Habitat for Humanity. My name is Heather Hart and I'm the Executive Director. I joined the organization just February of 2020. So nothing like trying to lead an organization going into COVID. And here on my right.
I'm Nick Hendy, Site Assistant.
Thank you, Nick. And for those, I'm not going to spend a lot of time telling you about what we do because you've already heard it, but we are a nonprofit construction company. And we believe that housing is a human right. Housing has always been important to all of us, but we have become acutely aware that really in the last few years, how important housing really is. And I think every time you see someone who's living in their car, whether it's a single individual or it's a family, our heart is just tugged and we want to figure out what we can do differently.
Habitat began on a farm project in 1950s Georgia, whose goal was to create equitable ownership of housing and land during the Jim Crow era. And they were credited with establishing the sweat equity model that we still use today. Today, Habitat affiliates proliferate around the world, providing a hand up to home ownership. Our affiliate began 30 years ago, thanks to folks like Tom, a retired educator and legislator, who advocated back then and now today that not only do we provide strength, stability, and self-reliance through shelter, but we provide hope and opportunity for our community's workforce to live where they work and serve.
Our program really focuses on folks who earn between 40 and 80% of area median income. They put in over 6 weeks of working alongside of our volunteer corps over the course of 12 months. That's a lot of time that they have basically committed to sacrificing what we would do on the weekends in order to build a house. And that is something that is really quite extraordinary. And they work alongside of our volunteers, which truly are the very best in the state, learning the ropes of home ownership, the responsibility that comes with it, as well as how to do it yourself and fix things, which is something that I think we all agree has gone the wayside in many ways.
No.
Katrina, our wonderful marketing communications director,
Yes.
coming to our rescue once again. So for those who don't know, once upon a time, I spent 20 years as a financial planner. And that job consisted predominantly of informing clients of their investment options. But also the other part of that story was actually really creating a different dialogue with dealing with money. And what I found in that career is that money is a very taboo subject. And we make a lot of mistakes because we just don't know what we don't know. We go to the school of hard knocks and we learn what not to do, but only after we've paid hefty fines or perhaps high interest rates that cost us. But the piece of wisdom that I really walked away with was this idea of a rule of thumb. And you can see here that there are a lot of needs that come out of our budget each and every month. And there are a few wants in this crazy, crazy world. But predominantly, the lesson here is that housing should consume no more than 30% of your budget. Because why? Any guesses? Because what are you going to cut? And that's what we see is a lot of people make cuts to whether it's saving or giving, including the debt, transportation, and lo and behold, they have less to be able to have to cover the wants in this world.
So here you can see some examples of a black screen, but it is a chart that represents. I think so. Oh.
Oh, do you want to just?
Yeah. Oh, the screen's so. Must be the projection. Well, I can describe this chart now that you can see it anyway. It's just some examples of some local jobs and the wages generally associated with those jobs. As you can see, it kind of starts up at the top of carpentry in this particular example, and it just kind of shows the wage breakdown. And we're going to take from this a few of these jobs and kind of plug it in to see what it would take to get how much home, given on the constraints that we work with. Okay, so from there, what do you want to take a few people to be our examples, I guess? All right, so we're gonna do one single, one couple. Yep. All right, I need one volunteer to be a single person who wants to be a homeowner.
Sweet Kelly.
What's your job? What's your job up there?
Which job would you like to take?
Let's do Homer
Apprentice.
All right.
You're making $15 an hour. Okay,
And who's gonna be our couple?
I need 2 more people. 2 more volunteers.
Shelby.
Paul and Keith.
Doctor isn't up there.
Doctor is not up there. What would you like to be instead?
How about, I'll be the line cook.
You'll be
Yeah,
a
all
line rep at 15.
I'll be
Okay.
the preschool aide.
Preschool aide at 12. Okay. So remember what you're earning. Okay. 15, 15, and 12. Okay. So the 2 of you together is 27.
Okay, we should be able to go to the next slide now, hopefully. Okay. So if we had all of these things, if we had $500 down payment, 2% interest, medium credit, homeowners, home insurance payment of $80 a month, an HOA fee, property taxes, and somehow miraculously 0 debt, how much home do we buy today? Obviously, this is a pretty ideal situation in the habitat world. It's not always the case.
There are unicorns, but
So back to you.
so what we have here is a chart. So how Habitat determines things is based upon, again, that 40 to 80% area median income. So what we earn, but also family size. And I know there's a lot of numbers on this page, so bear with me for just a moment. This section is 40% of AMI. This section is 80%, and over here is 100% of the AMI. Nick, would you hit the N on the screen? So Habitat, we've been able to build homes for $200,000 and less prior to this year, okay? Which means that, lo and behold, if you're earning 80% of the area median income, we can build a house that fits your needs within the household size, okay? Next, hit the next step. However, what we are facing going forward, because of a lot of changes that are happening in our community, and not just here, but across the nation, we're seeing now our prices jump from $200,000 to $350,000, which is very steep. And now that means that someone over here has to be a family size of 7 in order to qualify for this house. Okay? Meanwhile, our private sector friends over at Continuing Builders, they and every other for-profit builder out there is minimum is about $500,000. They want to build cheaper, but they can't. Okay.
Sure. So this chart shows some of our past and more current costs. Starting at the top, we're assuming a 1,400 square foot home, which has been done in the past, and the ones we're currently building are just under that. And below that, you'll see back in 2019, we had slightly lower labor costs, but they've gone up probably since I came aboard. Then you can see the big one though is lumber costs have gone up by a significant number in the past couple of seasons here. And the other one that's gone up by a lot, which I'm sure most of us are aware of in this room, is the lot costs. So when it comes down to it, because of the increase in cost, we're looking at a much higher price to build a habitat home than in the past.
And why this is relevant, because again, for us to be a relevant organization, we have to make sure that we can build homes that our clientele can afford. And, you know, this is a really dire situation, and it's caused us to think about how we have to pivot moving forward. If we keep doing what we've always been doing, we can't provide those homes to our working class. And it is time that we try and find some answers. So some of you might know this and some of you might not, but the other day job I have is sitting on your city council. And I have learned a number of different things, but first and foremost, that some of our largest problems are very much interrelated. Meaning that if we want to address climate change, we can't just think about how we sort or recycle. It also requires that we reduce what we consume. We figure out perhaps different ways that we can get to and from places, how we can operate our workplaces so that they are more efficient, where we build homes, and for that matter, how we build homes. All of that ties into how we can fight climate change. When I first joined council, I have to say I walked in thinking I had these really grandiose ideals. And it was based upon my very own neighborhood, which is the Rose Park neighborhood. And I thought, well, if we can build them like Rose Park, everybody would be happy. Happy because the neighborhood is highly walkable. It's to shops, to schools, to services, pocket parks, the Dairy Queen, even the ice rink. You can even leave your car unlocked. And chances are that come morning, your sunglasses, your phone charger, maybe even the keys to your car are still there when you find it. But what I didn't realize was how pricey this perfection actually costs. And I've heard my colleagues on council who represent the Franklin to the Fort neighborhood, the North Side, West Side neighborhoods, share stories that are very different from what I know. Parts of their neighborhood don't have the sidewalks, so that their seniors or those who have mobility issues can get around to seeing their neighbors. And I think especially during COVID, it really made me very aware that not everybody has that ability to get out like I do. And addressing those shortcomings today and trying to make those improvements is incredibly expensive. And worse, we find that those three neighborhoods in particular are shouldering the housing density that our city demands with those fewer services and conveniences near to them. These two numbers represent some interesting facts I also learned on council. Missoula County's housing specialist, Jordan Lyons, recently commissioned a study, and Eco Northwest tallied up what we are basically short in terms of housing numbers. To reach a reasonable vacancy rate of 2%, we have to add 2,400 homes. That's for last decade. And yet the numbers, and we realized too that we're going to keep growing and we need another 6,500 homes on top of the 2,400 we don't have, which is a huge number, and it can feel insurmountable. And when we kind of couple that all with what we've chatted about already, it seems insurmountable. However, thank you, Tom Facey. So the question then becomes, well, we have this problem, but who's going to build these homes at a price point that our line cooks and our daycare providers can afford? Habitat for Humanity of Missoula is willing to step into that role and help lead us through this process. But the question is, how do we actually pull that off? We will not do this by trying to address the problem one step at a time. Rather, we are approaching it from 5 different angles simultaneously.
So as you can see here, we've come up with the 5 L's for to describe the elements involved of the calculations we do in our houses. So I'm going to ask if some people have some guesses as to what those 5 L's might be.
Labor,
That's a pretty good.
yep.
When?
Land, okay.
3 more.
Lumber, yep.
Getting close. 2 more.
2 more.
There we go.
She's been doing her homework, good job.
1 more to go.
Lending.
Lending, yep.
Good. We did it.
Good job, all right. There's all 5 of them. So, I guess before we get kind of started into the 5 Ls, what I think is good to look at is really how our household sizes have changed over time. And our friends at AARP provided this research. They've been studying demographics for a long period of time. I'll draw your attention to this graphic here in the middle. So here, this represents the number of nuclear family households from 1970. It was at just over 40%, and over the last 50 years, we've gotten to where they have diminished in size to 20%. And the inverse also happened. We saw single-person households rise from 15% to 28% over that same time frame. And here on the left, you can see at the very tip top, the largest percentage are those single-person households. And our nuclear families are here at the bottom, only taking 1/5. So what we've seen is all of our demographics have completely shifted, but we keep building exactly for the same nuclear families from 50 years ago, which is yet another contributing factor to the house or to the pricing of housing. So in a nutshell, we can either continue on like we always have been, or again, we can elect to pivot and do something a little bit differently.
So getting on to the 5 L's here, we're going to kind of lump labor and lumber together. They're pretty similar. They're both kind of quintessential construction costs. Probably a lot of you are aware that we have a labor shortage in this country right now, especially in the trades. Mike and I deal with this all the time on the site for the subcontractors. They are spread very thin. They just don't have any extra time. They're constantly having some of their help poached by other contractors. This is happening a lot too. Young people are more attracted to other jobs that aren't so hard on the body as well. Maybe a job that's more conducive to raising a family, maybe less rigorous on the body, as I said. Construction can be tough to begin with, but it's a good career to have. It's obviously noble, and especially when you tie that to what we do here. As far as lumber and material prices, I'm sure that a lot of people have heard this beaten to death over the past 1.5 years as well, as they've just been skyrocketing. They are coming back down from where they were, at the beginning of the season, but still supply chains are very knotted up. In the past, our proximity to abundant lumber has been able to keep prices down around here, but not recently. And then the pandemic made it even worse. So here we're looking at some of the current and possibly future modes of building we do. Stick built is what we're doing right now. SIPS has been done in the past, and ICF we are also doing right now. So I'll talk about ICF for just a sec, because this year has been kind of a theme. My coworker and boss, Mike Seahorn, who is retiring soon, but nonetheless, set out last year to get a donation, I guess you could call it a grant, from the Superform and the Ready Mix Foundation. And Superform is the brand of ICFs we use to build the house at 514 Montana that we're working on right now. And so that just basically means ICF stands for insulated concrete form, meaning that we form the walls, pour the concrete, and then it's done and it stays there. We've done basements like this before, the Lamona home, so we had some experience, so I'm excited to go for it. And it was, I think, definitely a financial help and a learning experience for Mike and I too. There's some pros and cons to stick, SIPs, ICF as you compare them all. What we're seeing with the ICF is certain parts are going to move a lot quicker and get you along farther, and then certain parts are going to slow you down. But the house will be much more efficient than a standard house, especially an older house, and it will be very soundproof as well. So trying something new has prodded us back into the mode of thinking of new ways to do things again.
And this time, we stood up our newest team of volunteer experts and advisors, the innovation team, chaired by Dave Westfall. Where did he go? Back there. Thank you, Dave. This team is tasked with helping us weigh other methods like the SIPs and ICFs, but also factory-built modular construction, as well as additive manufacturing, also known as 3D concrete printers. We want to deliver efficient and high-quality construction, and that will always be our mantra. And we got to figure out a way to do it faster than what we've been doing. And what we have found is that falling down the rabbit hole of 3D printers, and I'm guessing a lot of us have watched a video, we can print a house in supposedly 2 days and have finishes before and after that kind of get us there. We don't know if it's going to necessarily work, which leads us now to something I'm very excited about, which is our new partnership with the University of Montana. Over here, we have Brad Allen, who represents Innovation Factory. He's a faculty member there who has agreed to work with us to help us figure out some research and development around a smaller size printer so that we can put our big toe into this idea, not just jump in head first, not knowing whether or not that kind of methodology is going to work. And he's been a great partner, and we will continue to work together. On the other side of him is Diana, who's from our MBA entrepreneurship cohort, who we were very lucky to also acquire. We have 4 MBA students who are dedicated to helping us suss out the 30 international firms that are focused on the 3D concrete printers to be able to drill down to figure out which company delivers the best product for the needs that we have, where we want to be able to build not just 2 homes a year like we have been doing for the last 30 years, but start to build exponentially 3, 4, 8, 12, so that we can really start addressing our communities. So now that we've really kind of talked about perhaps the how our construction methods can change, it still comes back to one important thing. Where are we going to get the land in order to do it? And that's the question I get asked by every donor, every grantor, every community member. Where is that going to happen? Well, it happens because we find that we can be part of the solution. Last time I checked, humans do not possess the power to either mold magma or shift tectonic plates and create more land. And in fact, here in Montana, we have plenty of land, but what we don't have enough of are developable lots. And that's where we need to be able to create more. And it really comes back to one very important thing, and that is zoning laws, hence the laws of the 5 Ls. And zoning is well, humans created it. Guess what? We can also recreate it and make it better than how it's always been. Because today's zoning is really based on models from the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, back in the day when there was a federal push to actually create more and more suburbs based upon the auto industry. And things really kind of took a significant shift. And now it's time that we can start to think and build more inwardly and do some more infill projects. Considering where we are, the crisis in which we face today, we need to do some things a little bit differently. And our other team, the land acquisition and development team, Ryan Fry is our chair. He's back in the room there. This is a team filled with industry experts in land use and planning, zoning code, and development. They cross sectors, they cross agencies. They are competitors as well as allies. They don't always see eye to eye, and yet we are all committed to trying to find ways to make our housing more affordable. One of the ways we've figured that out is by having conversations. And remember the $150,000 lot prices that we illustrated earlier? Well, our families can't afford those. And our families, whether they're in Missoula, they're Bozeman, Helena, Butte, Billings, Kalispell, all of the Habitat affiliates across the state are in exactly the same predicament. Their prices might be a little bit different from ours, but they're all highly They're very high. And so after talking with some of my Habitat colleagues around the state, including Jake Kuntz from Helena, who's over here, please wave. He drove all the way from Helena for this today. I learned that they're building 4 to 8 homes each and every year. Yeah, that's what I thought too. And I started wondering, well, how do you do that? And how do you manage to keep it under $200,000? And part of that secret is a community land trust. And that led to conversations with our partners at Trust Montana and Homeward, Andrea Davis in the back. Trust Montana in particular is a nonprofit organization, really where they are designed specifically to create forever affordable homes. And they do it by doing something rather unique. They separate the land from the home. And they're tied together with what they call a ground lease. But ultimately, our partner families, they have a 30-year mortgage, but it's only going to be on the home and not the land. So in effect, they become land stewards while they are in their homes. This then took it to the next level. And this is an idea that I'm calling for right now a backyard CLT home. This is my house, the primary residence. And by our zoning laws today, I can create back here a secondary residence as an accessory dwelling unit or an ADU, also known as a granny flat. And I can rent that out. And our zoning code really promotes rentals. But I'll tell you what it doesn't really promote is home ownership for more people. So what this idea is to actually be able to carve out the backyard. We'll figure out an easement so that you can access the front street or from the alleyway, but make another home in the backyard that's a smaller footprint at a price tag that is affordable for our families here in Missoula. This land acquisition team also met with the mayor and part of his Office of Community Planning and Development and Innovation to really also talk about some interim rules. Right now, our city has committed itself to overhauling our zoning code, but that's going to take 2 to 3 years for that to finish. Missoula County is just about done with theirs. Should be going into effect, I think, around the first of the year. And it's a big deal. But in the meantime, we have 2 to 3 years that there's a lot of pressure on our housing market, and we got to do something different. So these are some interim rules that Ryan and myself and a couple of others from our team talked to the mayor and his team to really kind of say, these are some options that can actually make a huge difference in reducing cost.
So piggybacking up what you were just speaking about, how can we use our lands better and what forms can we do that? And really, to me, what it comes down to is maximizing what we can do. Like for the past 3 years, I've worked with the various partner families and I've seen how much it really changes their lives to be able to move into what we build for them and how much they learn from the whole process. So to me, it's like, why wouldn't we be asking, how can we serve more people than just 2 to 3 a year? I think it's the obvious question. And these are some of the things we've been talking about are ways that we can pursue that increase in capacity. So some ways that we have to think about doing that is, multiple family homes perhaps to make things more, not only more affordable, but more sustainable overall. Our Land Acquisition Development Committee and Building Committee also note that residential neighborhoods with majority single family homes often are idyllic and easy to build, but don't maximize perhaps the land use, right? So if you just have a block of houses, it's going to be more than likely farther away from the things she was talking about that she likes her Rose neighborhood for. So when you have these issues, you end up with maybe commutes or longer transport costs, larger transport costs, I should say. And when we're talking about sustainability, if we can lower transport, that's obviously an easy first step. So it's like, if you can find a way to make things more affordable, house more people, encourage less consumption and commute time, and add to the walkability of the neighborhood, it's just a more positive outcome from start to finish. So.
Thanks, Dan. All right, so Katrina, next up, we want to invite Abigail Carey to share her story. Let you do this so I don't. Brittany, do you?
Well, I just want to say my family is really excited to be working on our house with Habitat this summer. I'm from Missoula. I was born here and grew up here, and I've gone away a few times and have come back a few times. And shortly after my son was born, I got really serious about trying to buy a house. And as many people know, the house prices in Missoula have just gone up and up and up. And of course, during the pandemic, they've gone up even more. So I just didn't know if we would ever be able to own a home. But Missoula is my home. It's my community. I feel very connected here, and I didn't want to live anywhere else. So we applied to be a partner family with Habitat last summer, and we're just ecstatic to find out that we'd been selected this year. And it's been just absolutely amazing to watch the house physically take shape. I feel like every single step of the way, it looks different. Like when they dug the little trenches for the footings, I was like, oh, there's the footprint of the house. And then we built the footings, and then we built up the walls, and now the roof is on. And each step, it looks totally different. But it's been really, really fun for us to see it take shape, to work on it take shape, to actually physically put our hands on it and build it and connect with there've been so many volunteers who have come out. It's been incredible. And I think incredibly encouraging that people are taking care of each other. I think sometimes, always, but especially the last year, sometimes the news has been pretty grim, and it's just been lovely to go out on site and see people actually helping each other and helping us. And I think it's been a wonderful thing for my son to see this and to experience this as well. Like, he's been able to see our house take shape. He's old enough, he's going to remember this. And he's asked things like, why are people helping us build our house? Why are they doing this? And why did they give us the blocks to build the walls? And I think it's a wonderful lesson for him to not just to learn, but to experience that people can take care of each other and do take care of each other. And I hope that that we and he are able to do that in our community as well, to give to other people, because it's an important way to be connected. So that's what I'll say for now. Thank you.
So next up, we have the Restore. And Todd Francinovich, our Restore manager, is going to speak a few words and tell you a little bit about the opportunities there, and more importantly, really what the Restore does.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Todd, and I work in the Habitat Restore. We have a small staff and a crew of dedicated volunteers, and with them, we provide housewares, furniture, appliances, a range of building materials to the Missoula area at truly reasonable prices. Most of the items available are donated by our neighbors and area businesses. We offer free pickup service for things that are too large for people to bring to the store. And due to the volume, our inventory changes quickly. The proceeds from the Restore stay right here in our community to support the housing projects. And the donations to the Restore are completely tax deductible. Giving a second life to the items in the store has a side benefit of saving a large amount of waste going to the landfill. Our estimate conservatively is 12 dumpsters a week. Another important part of the Restore's mission is to make quality home furnishings available to people in the area and students at prices that they can actually afford. A couple recently visited the store with their 6-year-old daughter. They had been living in their car for 6 months, and they recently got an apartment, and they were ecstatic, but they had nothing. So we set them up with their home essentials and some furniture to get them by. And we even managed to find a child's table and art table and chair for their daughter. 10 days later, the husband came to me and he brought me a small wooden chair and he said he wanted to donate it. And I asked him, how could they possibly donate any furniture? And he said, for everything that we did for them, they felt like they had to give something back. And that gets me choked up a little bit. We have these experiences all the time that remind us about the community that we live in. And it shows us, those of us at the Habitat for Humanity Restore, that the spirit of giving is alive and well in this community. Thanks, everyone.
Frankie Feinstein, our volunteer coordinator and family liaison, is up next.
I'll pray for you too. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Now is actually the fun part of the evening. The part you really came for is to find out how you can get involved with Habitat. How can you help make this all happen? We have many opportunities, as you've been hearing, many ways to volunteer and help Habitat move forward as we move to build more homes for more Missoula families. The opportunities are many. We have opportunities at our build site. If you want to learn a new skill, if you want to share a talent you already have, if you want to work with Nick, you can just come out over to the build site. At our Restore, Todd talked about all the wonderful items we have, but we have a lot of treasures there. So if you like digging through treasures, you want to help identify what something is, or sort it, clean it up, or maybe you like to display things, maybe you like to move furniture and you like to work with Todd, you can come work at our Restore. And then we have our committees, which I'm not going to go into detail about, but they span from advocacy to party planning. And all of our volunteers serve as ambassadors for our organization. So those of you who know me know that I give little talks all the time, but tonight I'm a little bit nervous, so bear with me. And those of you that know me too, let me know if I leave anything out. But here we have my screen, which I picked the C letter for my alliterative letter, the many C's of Habitat, which is not a coincidence because we are in the construction business. We build houses, we build beautiful, well-built, efficient houses. And another L word that I've talked to Heather about is that we build our homes with love. Our volunteers come out and they just put that loving touch on everything. Occasionally we need to redo that, but the families know that it's there. It's built into the beams, and they know that the love is there. We build community. We build with the people in our community. We build with little kids from preschool making sack lunches for our builders. Retirees come out and work with teenagers and provide mentorship. We have people from different faith communities, service clubs. We have businesses that send their employees out and do team building so they can work with each other in a different way and get to know each other. And while we're building community, from the community, we have our own Habitat community, the camaraderie that it provides. And one of the stories I would like to tell is last year, when we were just getting into the whole COVID thing and we were locked down in March and everybody went to work remotely, we started building at the end of June, which was pretty late for us, but we were able to start, and we were able to have small groups out at the build site. And the groups were so happy to see each other in person again. They were just delighted to be at Habitat and to be working together. We have groups of volunteers that come out on a regular basis, and Habitat was their safe spot, their bubble. They could come out and work with the Wednesday group that they have gotten to know, and they could leave their house and come to Habitat and build. And the other thing that I think Heather talked a little bit about, but the camaraderie at Habitat kind of spans differences that people have, so that when you get a group of people that feel different, like I think you were talking in your committee, coming from different angles, you might have different opinions about things or think differently, but everybody comes together to build the houses. And I think that's a pretty neat thing myself. So all these great things, and we're getting good work done. Another thing I want to talk about that got left out in my slide here. Oh,
No,
is we build confidence. So you come out, you don't know a thing about building, and step by step, task by task, you learn how to do this and then that, and then you learn how to build your whole house. Our partner families gain a lot of confidence from actually working on their houses. And our volunteers keep coming back because they like to show off what they've learned and what they have confidence in. So that's a wonderful thing. And then we also have a cost benefit of volunteers. So I ran a little report that I think comes in on the low side, but over the 30 years that we've been around, we have had over 250,000 hours of volunteer time in our programs. And at the going rate for today, which is $28 and something for a volunteer hour, that is $7,135,000 worth of volunteer time at our sites. If we take into consideration the volunteering, the sweat equity that our families provide, that is another almost $700,000. And so that's a way that our homes are affordable because of the sweat equity the families put in and all the volunteers' time and effort. And as Barbara started us off talking about all the different ways people can volunteer, there's also volunteers that have been here for the lifetime of our organization, like Tom Facey, or Betty and Dan Root, if you know them. There's volunteers that have been here at the beginning and are still here now. There are volunteers that just started 2 weeks ago, or like Dave back there in the corners, pretty new volunteer. And so we just really appreciate everybody that comes out and helps us at the build site, at the restore, on our committees, when we have events, when we're able to have events again. So in closing, I just want y'all to think about in the upcoming post-COVID era, please consider what commitment you can make to help bring Habitat to more Missoulians. What commitment can you make to bring yourself more joy? And if you are interested, please reach out to us and let us know how you can contribute. And we just really need your support. So thank you.
Thank you, Frankie. All right, so I gave you a little teaser before. The fifth L. Anybody remember what it was that we did not cover? Lending. You got it. Well, the good thing about Habitat is that we have a really strong kind of lending program where we can actually get some loans for our partner families at 0% interest. So it's a big, big deal. But in order to actually make that work, we have to still finance that. And we do that through grants. We do it through individual donations and in-kind contributions. What we realize in order for us to start doing what our community needs us to do is build more houses. It means that we need to stand up one more committee, and that is our philanthropy committee. Paul Lindstrom and Jana Staten, I know I saw, there she is in the back. Both of them are from our philanthropy committee, and they are tasked with really kind of being our cheerleaders about our cause, and network their networks and do it with grace, with style, and with a good sense of humor along with it. And as a result of that, we are poised to do some really great things. So I want to say thank you all for listening in.